Hi, thank you very much. Let's get this party started out here. All right, thank you very much for coming out here. My name is Carlos, and I'll be talking about the intelligence cycle. Let's do this in like a Terminator type of thing, and it's titled "Why Skynet Loved It, Terminator Used It, and it might help you secure your organization if you don't have a clue about how to do it." Yeah, that was long. Apologize for that. First of all, a little disclaimer. First of all, the ideas in this presentation are my own, not reflect those of my employer. This presentation does not disclose any sensitive information. It's not about civil liberties, privacy rights, illegal surveillance, or any other that stuff. And it's not about building robots or destroying the human race, as that would definitely suck big time. All right, so let's think about two events for a minute. I'm going to try to illustrate this for you guys the best I can. Oops. No problem here. There we go. Okay, so the Falklands War, 1982. Anybody familiar with this conflict? Your hand. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happened here? This is a very symmetric conflict. Two almost equally strong forces facing each other. A lot of things happen here. How does intelligence shape the conflict? How does intelligence shape decisions that are made in the battlefield? This is something that's very related to security, as many of you work against an adversary day to day. So at this point, what happens? At this moment, when the sinking of HMS Sheffield happened, what was the story building up to this event? Intelligence reports tell the British that the Argentine fleet has an aircraft carrier moored in port in Argentina. Besides that, they also know that the only attack option is a head-on aerial attack. After this, Sheffield is ordered to sail in picket defense formation with 4 other ships. These protect an aircraft carrier. It's called Carrier Group, which was HMS Hermes, which was the Navy's flagship in this case. What happens in here? On 4 May 1982, 2 missiles impact Sheffield. They tear a hole in one of the on the sides of the ship. The ship sinks. The ship sinks. The picket formation in this case worked. Why was that? What was that the case? Because it was designed to defend the carrier against that type of attack based on intelligence reports. There was another case in this war in which that did not work because of the intelligence information, and that was the SS Atlantic conveyor. This was a cargo ship. It was loaded with 11 cargo helicopters that were supposed to be delivering troops materials, and they were supposed to be facilitating the movement of those troops along as the British Army was advancing. What was the problem here? Was declared non-critical because of intelligence reports. They said, no problem, we got a cargo ship, that side of the conflict's not so well defended. What happened? No one took that into account, that the Argentines weren't actually looking for these type of targets. No one protected it. What happened? On 25 May 1982, 2 Axis missiles impact the ship. It sinks with all its cargo. And this delays the war for 3 weeks. That means time, lives, money, loss of momentum, all that kind of stuff. Yes, it is all about intelligence. And that the Sex Pistols could have not summed this up better than this. Why? Because you use everything that you've got when it comes to information. You use the best, the rest, you even use the enemy. You think about the enemy, you try to understand the enemy. So, for any information security professionals, this is our daily, come and go. We need to know information about a lot of things. Actually, it could be considered that the information security function is the one that knows the most about the company. Why? Because we need to know everything. We need to know those interactions. What do we know about the company? We know about the business landscape, compliance landscape that we should be abiding by. We got functional areas and systems, the layout of how those areas interact between each other, what type of vulnerabilities are out there, can be exploited by our adversaries. We got behaviors from those attackers, how they actually go in and out. Changes to the IT infrastructure, what type of new systems are brought on board, which ones are decommissioned, which one are in there without us even knowing about this. And the continuous improvement of this, the IT infrastructure from the security standpoint. Way too many things out there too. If any one of you can name them, I bet there's something out here I might have missed. But then again, what is the intelligence cycle? It is a systematic and ethical process of gathering, classification, analysis, and dissemination of operable knowledge. Should be made in an ethical form. That's the way why I brought this up. I'm not talking about the attacking part. This is more geared towards the defensive end of the operation. It's focused towards decision makers. Most of the information that we have, that we produce, we give it to somebody else to take critical decisions. And we even might be able to take those decisions during the day. So that preventive or corrective measures can be taken with the highest possible level of rationality. So that we know that those decisions that we take are going to be meaningful and are going to help us out to do something. Now, 4 elements are very crucial for this information to be usable. It needs to be relevant. I mean, the stuff that you can say, I can actually relate to that. I can use that stuff, which is the next one. So let's get this thing going on right now. It must be timely. So it must be delivered at the time when it's still relevant and usable. And most of the time you go like, okay, do you know about this stuff? Sir, it was uploaded 4 days ago. Legitimacy and certainty. We didn't read this stuff from the onion. We did a lot of research, we plug into our sources, and this is stuff that we research, we analyze, and we provide to someone else. So let's go on with those steps on the cycle. The first of all is planning. This is when you define the objectives of what you might want to do, what you might want to defend, what is the purpose of your infrastructure, what is the purpose of the intelligence work. You define vital signs. Certain things that you look for, that you start monitoring its behavior. This is also very good stuff since you can see someone develop, you can see variables populate, and you can monitor all those things to your advantage. And the essential information elements. What are EIEs? That's the stuff that you know and stuff that you don't know. Stuff you already know, that helps you understand the problem or the courses of action. The stuff that you don't know, you know that you need to focus on that so you can get even more certainty and you can keep going forward with your objectives. Now for information security, I've added up a couple of examples here. For instance, the objective might be to deliver a strong information security component that promotes business resiliency. Everybody wants to enable the life of the business as we put information security in place. Compliance metrics, number of incidents handled, system uptime for your vital signs. And for EIEs, we can review current technology in use, business plans, vulnerabilities that we do not know about, and the attack vectors that can be taken by adversaries that we might not even know. Now, for the investigation and collection part, this is when you start getting the information. This is a very important part. This is when you define your sources of information, where you place those sensors that give you information, and what the value of those things are for you when you set them out there in the field. This stuff is all about, this is what Skynet used to get their victims, this is what Terminators do, and you can definitely rely on these things. What kind of sources can we pick? We can pick internal sources, stuff that is inside of our boundaries. We can pick external information. We can also define if those sources are open or are closed. And we can also define if those sources are technical in its nature or non-technical. Non-technical stuff can be anything that's not related to computers. Might be behaviors. Jen just gave you a great example on that. That's pretty much the stuff you can define for your source. Now, the methods, how you're going to get that information, might be automated, might be manual, when it comes to information extraction. Might be human, might be artificial. The sensor placement. What sources of information are most important to you? Most of the time when you define the importance of an asset, that's when you put a special label on those things saying, this is information that I need to know or get no matter what. So those sensors are going to be very important to you when it comes to placement. The availability, is this source of information available year-round or all week long, every day? Do I have to do something to get it? Do I have to wait for it to be available or not? That's some of the stuff that you define over there. And the cost. Is it very expensive for me to get this information? Is it easier for me to get? That defines if we need to invest more time and resources on getting that information. Now, very important thing is the tradecraft. The tradecraft is all the non-technical resources or techniques that you engage in to get that information. Jen just gave us a great talk on that. Pen testing on the physical realm is a great tradecraft example. That's how you start developing your arsenal of techniques to extract information. Any intelligence agency does something like that. It might be as simple as talking to someone, saying please, and you can even buy them a bacon cheeseburger. But anything that you can do that actually gets you the information. Sometimes it's as simple as a smile and a please. Oops. Now, this is the core of the intelligence cycle. When you do the analysis and production of information, what is the component of intelligence analysis? It's a formal process which attempts to find and measure relations among variables. That's the main point in here. How those variables affect an outcome and produce information that we can use to our advantage. Now, the main thing that you do with analysis is you use your experience. If you're knowledgeable a certain topic or about a certain type of operation, use what you know. It gives you a lot of information, it gives you a lot of methods that you can use to process this information. This is a skill that can be taught. So if you like to teach your staff, then we're of luck then. This is something that you can prepare your staff to do. Now, big data, SIM stuff, even Excel. All the technology at your disposal, you can use it to do analysis. Doesn't matter if it's low key or if it's high key. As long as it allows you to process amounts of information, it can be used. There's no set tool or set method to do that. You can even come up with your own. Now, when it comes to your mindset of processing that information, biased and self-assurance do not belong there. So if you're biased toward leaning forward to using a certain tool or a certain technology or a certain mindset, not going to help you out. If you're trying to think that everything's safe, that we're okay, no problem, that's not going to help you either. You need to think from a standpoint that anything is possible. Now, you can go big on your analysis effort. You can go small, but don't quit. Tailor it to your capabilities, tailor it to your technology. Now, for analysis techniques, this is a very, very vast resource. There's a lot of information in this. I wish I could actually give you a little bit more, but if there are entire books written on this topic, and I would definitely advise you to dig deeper into this topic by yourself. On the basic side, you can see stuff like transmission, which is just to get information from one place to the other. Accumulation, a lot of people start doing information repositories that you can tap in anytime that you want. You can do aggregation, which means tap into various sources of information, not just one, that help you see a problem from a very different standpoint. And pattern recognition, that's when you start seeing that something might be repeating itself, or that those repetitions have a certain relationship with another element in your analysis framework. Now, this is the more advanced side. When you start decomposing situations, you start doing analysis based on the elements of a system, that's when you start going advanced. Idea generation, pretty much brainstorming, getting the creative juices flowing. Scenarios and indicators, when you start defining what can possibly happen and setting some indicators that you need to monitor over the course of time. Maybe certain counts or certain parameters that you define towards that specific scenario. Hypothesis generation. What is it that can happen in a certain situation? Assessment of cause and effect. If you define a certain situation, what things can trigger that event going backwards or forwards? And for challenge analysis, that's when you start pitting analysts against each other. You start comparing your notes, challenging one another to find an answer to a certain problem, and those answers might be plausible to you. Conflict management. How do opposing people complement each other and not drive you away from the solution, and how you also can do a little bit of decision support once you start closing in on the proposed solution. Now, what's the objective of this? That you're knowledgeable enough to give a credible opinion about something. And that's when your boss goes around the office and goes like, hey, do you know anything about stuff? And you put on your glasses and you go, I have detailed files and rock hard apps. Okay. Now we get to the point of where disseminating information, how we deliver this information to the people that are supposed to take decisions. First of all, you don't have to pay for fancy tools to do this. Many people like to get up maybe a site or repository of information based on an expensive database. Many people do it on SharePoint. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of organizations that can't pay for this. But if you can actually set it up on open source tools, or even email with PGP keys to secure and actually sign these messages, it's enough for you to do this. You can tailor it to your own, you can tailor this to your own needs. Now, you need to remember, this is something that you're going to be giving out on a need-to-know basis only. You don't want everybody to be accessing this information. If they need to know about this information, then you disseminate that to them. If they don't need to know about this, it might trigger a lot of things that you do not want. And always know who you're talking to. You're not going to tailor a report to a middle-level manager the same way that you do for your CISO or your head of security. You need to think about that. And this is a great example. I'm not trying to make fun of this guy, but this is good. Anybody know who this guy is, right? So, when Robert Gates went to Afghanistan to understand the situation of counterinsurgency dynamics, he asked for a small presentation, something that could be readable right off the bat. Now, this gentleman over here has got a lot of experience doing analysis for intelligence work, regardless of what you think of it. When he saw this the first time, he admitted it was very difficult to understand it. Because right off the bat, there's a lot of associations in here, but no conclusion. But it takes time to understand this. Most of the time you want something that is readable, understandable, right off the bat. You need to be clear on what to explain based on your information. Now, counterintelligence. What do we define by counterintelligence? How you protect your intelligence systems. How you protect your information. If you're going to keep up with this stuff, you need to secure your environment. If your information repositories are not secure, if you get compromised, this information is going to leak out. And this is valuable information for your entity. That's the reason why we see stuff like this. Thousands of passwords stored in just stored in a hard drive out there, unencrypted, completely insecure. Now, utilization of information. You're going to use this stuff. Someone's going to use the stuff you're producing. And what's crucial for this? Well, which Sarah Connor am I going to, believe? Which one is the real one? As a user of your product, and I trust what you're saying. Your main challenge is always going to be to build credibility if you build an intelligent system or you design something using the intelligence cycle. And this is something that you create over time. That's the reason why intelligence work is very oriented towards the credibility of the sources of information that you decide to use. Now we're closing in on the end of this presentation. So books and resources that you guys can look for and augment your knowledge on strategic intelligence. The first one is very classic text. Solid Warfare, Understanding the World of Intelligence, 3rd edition by Schultzky and Gary Schmidt. That's very basic intelligence work. It pretty much explains how the intelligence cycle works and how an intelligence agency gets information, processes it, and uses it. The second one, this is one of my favorite books on the topic. Structured Analytic Techniques for Intelligence Analysis, 2nd edition. They're going on for the new one by Richard Heuer and Randall Fersen. This book is full of great resources for intelligence analysts. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff that you can use for thinking, for producing information, for analyzing information. Definitely recommend this one. And there's a Tradecraft Primer, Structured Analytic Techniques for Improving Intelligence Analysis. This was produced by the U.S. government. It's a PDF that you can download freely from the internet. There's no classification of this one. And the last one is The Gatekeepers. It's a documentary about the Mossad and their tradecraft, how you can actually do a lot with understanding your adversary and refining your intelligence techniques. There's a great example on social engineering, on how Israeli pilots have a very advanced Arabic language courses. They learn it to the point in which they develop local accents in Arabic, so that when they do certain operations, like Operation Opera, when they bombed the Ostrak reactor in Iraq back in the late 80s, they're able to cross airspace and chat with tower controllers in Saudi Arabia using an accented Arabic. And that's great. That's one of the best social engineering techniques that I've ever heard around the world. Now, I'm going to leave you with a last thought. Let me get this for you. Okay, anybody familiar with this document? Stephen, what is it?
Basically, it's a checklist providing different ways to, inside so the intelligence analysis, like a procedure to go through, and a way to thin out the possibilities of what could be present and what is not. They're basically dealing with misinformation.
Very good. It's a very condensed document that is delivered to the President of the United States every morning. It contains the most important things happening in the world that morning, so that he can know what is it that he's going to be facing out that day. This has been prepared by the CIA for a long time. This copy is declassified, of course. It's a very, very old copy, but it's a very significant copy in the history of the United States. Why? Anybody know what happened on that date? Anybody know? The Kennedy assassination, correct. So it's a 4-page document. Kennedy was the first guy that actually read this thing. It was designed for President Kennedy. He was the first president for whom the CIA produced this document. But that day, in honor of President Kennedy, for whom the President's Intelligence Checklist was first written on 17 June 1961. Oops. Let me scroll down here. For this day, the checklist staff, you find no words more fitting than a verse quoted by the President to a group of newspapermen the day he learned of the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba. Bullfight critics ranked in rows, throughout the enormous plaza full. But only one is there who knows, and that's the man who fights the bull. All of you here out this today, you're all into security, you're all protecting something each and every day, but you work for your organization for a reason. Over time, you have developed knowledge to protect that infrastructure and to do your job. There are many sources of information that you can pick every day to do your work. But at the end of the day, you are the ones who fight the bull. You are the ones whose job is to know more about your infrastructure than anybody else. One last good one here, and I think that's it. One more. Slide in. Yeah, this is a closing. There we go. Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions? Stephen, yes.
What have you heard about the loose use of machine learning for intelligence analysis?
I'm sorry, for what?
For the use of machine learning as part of the analysis process?
Oh, there's a lot of that stuff going on. Big data has definitely enabled that process to be easier and even faster. Not to go with a commercial out here, but Splunk is doing a lot of stuff on this thing. The engine is correlating a lot of information. As long as you are able to manipulate it, you get a lot of information through big data. But my first go-to tool would definitely be Splunk. It's free up to a certain extent. You can experiment a lot with it. So the engine on Splunk is definitely doing great things for this field. Anybody else? Yes.
Did you bring any vendor samples with you?
Unfortunately not. I was a little skeptical about the age of the audience, and I definitely don't want to lose my visa over administering alcohol to a minor, but I would definitely make an effort to bring some the next time. Anybody else? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. For those that didn't get that last part, Beam, Jim Beam,